before we get to the company, let's talk about you first. Go way back. Well, maybe not way back in your case. Teenage years. Teenage Eric West. Where were you? Where were you living? What were your passions?
I grew up in Washington, the Washington area. My parents are both from D.C., and I grew up in Bethesda, Maryland. And I was a very typical teenager of the late 70s, early 80s. I loved sports. I loved the Redskins. And I loved business. Both my parents were entrepreneurs. My family, I have a very large family. Pretty much everybody in my family worked for themselves. And so I always had a love focused on the typical things. I also was very interested in business, even at an early age.
Okay, so you naturally understand the entrepreneurial nature of what it means to work for yourself, to be independent. So this idea of corporate side of a business, being an employee, were you ever an employee? So before we get there, so where did those interests take you? And did you do entrepreneurial jobs, offerings as a teenager or in your early 20s? Were you doing anything as far as new businesses?
Yeah, it's very funny. So a couple things. Even when I was little, when I was in high school, I was working with my dad, who was a corporate and tax attorney. He had his own firm. We had a plan about me going into real estate. And I was just talking about this to somebody else recently. So as instance, when I was 16, my dad hired me as a delivery boy for his law firm. But the idea was I would really learn about the city and where buildings were and how to get around the city. And then the next few years, I actually worked in the real estate department of his law firm, helping with real estate closings and transactions and reading documents. Well, one year when I was in college, I worked construction. And that actually was the worst summer of my life. I was terrible at it. I got fired. But that goes to entrepreneurialism because I needed to make money for college. I paid for not my tuition, but pretty much everything else. So I needed a job. And what I had learned working on the construction sites was blacktopping. So I had a little blacktopping company, and I earned more in the last 6 weeks of that summer, freshman, sophomore year of college, than I did all of the rest of the summer working construction. And I did that and had a window washing company throughout the rest of college when I wasn't working at the law firm.
Eric, I got to tell you, this is true. And we haven't talked before then. So I also was raised by a dad who was in commercial real estate. He had me reading leases when I was probably 12 years old. And then I did construction jobs during the summer. And I remember, because you mentioned blacktopping, I was paving a parking garage in Miami, Florida in August outside, and it was a bank building. So it was my brother and I, we look at the bank building because we always see what time it was, how long we had to go till we stopped. And then, of course, besides the time, banks would show the temperature. So we'd be out there, blacktop, paving the blacktop, it'd be 102 degrees. And I told myself, I will never, ever do this again.
Oh my God. I know exactly what you're talking about. I am so happy every day working inside an office because of that experience. That's very funny.
Yeah, so I feel for you, brother. I know exactly where you're coming from. But yeah, it made you a lot of money. So you were an entrepreneur by trade, just by grazing naturally. There you go. So you go off to college. Now, where'd you go to school?
I actually went to Tulane University in New Orleans, and I know your brother went there as well.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. So we have these parallel tracks.
Okay, so you went to Tulane. Tulane is a great school, but also a heavy party school, being where it's located. So this entrepreneur partier, washing windows, making money, paying for school. You leave college. Now, was it a natural first step going to real estate, or did that take some time to get there?
In my junior year of college, one of my best friends and fraternity brothers, his father distributed restaurant equipment. My uncle in New York was an owner of a very large restaurant equipment manufacturing company. And that equipment that my uncle's company made, my friend's father actually was the distributor in Washington. This was the mid-'80s. And one of the things that was going on in the world back then was very hard to finance restaurant equipment. But leasing restaurant equipment was very popular. And leasing was a very local business. My friend and I came up with an idea for a business when we were juniors in college about putting together a database of lenders that would lease restaurant equipment, like a national database with different lending criteria and interest rates. And once we put that together, we would go to distributors around the country for them to use our system as opposed to the local bank. They could sell more stuff. So we spent our junior and half of our senior year of college putting that together. By our second semester junior year of college, we were going around the country talking to different banks and lending sources, fulfilling this database. So we ran that company for a year after college. And then two things happened. We ran it out of my basement at my house in Bethesda. They changed the tax laws in '86, and that ruined the tax advantage for that equipment leasing. So we were going to be out of business. We sold the database, a local lender. Then I needed to get into a job. And it was really important for me at that point. I wanted to go into Wall Street or into commercial real estate. I got a job at a local commercial real estate company that had at that time the best training program. What I wanted to do was learn about the mechanics of business, not so much the selling of real estate. And I spent 9.5 years there, and it was a great company when I got there. The training program was amazing. That was very important and very informative for me.
Okay, so you got these informative years. Well, I love the fact that you continue to build new businesses. And the first job, as you said, you put was still an entrepreneurial independent contractor in nature. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I was talking to somebody recently about a job and career, and I realized I've never had a salary in my entire life. I've never had a salary. I'm used to it. I don't know what that would be like, but I've always worked for myself in some fashion.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. So then the entrepreneurial bug, sometimes we all think we can do something better, faster, more independent. So you must have made a decision at that point in time to go off and start your own firm. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I worked at the company that I was working for by the mid 90s. It was a regional firm, a large regional firm. And at that point, that was the turn when most of the regional firms were getting bought. And this company was really getting pulled on both ends. They were losing good talent. And I was really trying to figure out the next move. One of my best friends from college, he was a fraternity brother a year ahead of me, also from the DC area, was Rich Lane. Rich got into commercial real estate after college. And a year after I graduated, he and I moved into a house. He rented a house in DC, a group house, a bunch of us. So we were both living in this group house. We were both working for commercial real estate firms. We were competing with each other, but we had an understanding like what we could and could not talk about in terms of business. And we lived together for 3.5 years. So fast forward, 1995, I'd been in real estate for about 9 years. And I had a decision to make about I was going to leave the firm I was working for. And I talked to Rich and I had an idea about starting a business. And we decided we would either start a business or go as a team to another company. But we were 33 at the time, actually 32 at the time. And we figured if we're ever going to start a business, it might be now. We didn't have kids. If the business, we would have already elevated our name and our brand to be a more successful team at another firm. And so it took us about 9 months, actually, from the time we decided to do this partnership to the time we actually started the business. And then during that period of time, my wife actually got pregnant with our now first kid. But yeah, that's how it started.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a short break. And so far, what we heard from Eric is, his entrepreneurial path, all the businesses he started. Now he had the 9 years of understanding commercial real estate. He's about to break off on his own. And how do we start there from this point to becoming one of the top producers in the marketplace and certainly one of the top producers in the country? We'll get that next. We come right back with the rest of the Massimo Show.
Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, president and founder of the Massimo Group. And did you know that for over the past 11 plus years, we've worked with thousands of independent contractors, solopreneurs, and small business owners just like you in repositioning their and/or their team's efforts so they can build the personal, professional practice they've always dreamed of. We provide coaching programs for all levels of experience, earnings, and yes, success. So if you're finally ready to get off that transaction treadmill and chasing deals that are growing nowhere and start building the personal, professional business and life consisting of greater wealth and more time, well, check us out at Massimo.coach. That's Massimo.coach.
Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show. We're back with our top producer series and Mr. Eric West of West, Lang, and Schlager Realty Advisors. So, Eric, we're back to you. You're now about to start your own firm. You're in the DC market. So, you're starting your own firm. Are you thinking we're going to do a specialty or we're going to be a boutique? Because let's face it, in a major market like DC, competing, it can be like any market, but especially in DC is really hard, especially as boutique. So what were you going to be? How are you going to be different?
At that time, we really didn't have a specialty. What we wanted to do was, for a certain type of client, really just give great service. So what we saw in 95, when we were putting the business together, in 96 when we started it, was the real estate firms in this area were consolidating, and they were consolidating really to help the largest tenants in the market. And those were ones with national and international requirements. And what we saw in 96 was, especially in this market, 30% of the business is in the nonprofit world. That could be, don't think necessarily community nonprofits. They're very large organizations, large foundations, trade associations, which are lobbying firms, non-governmental organizations. The insight and the information and the way that they made decisions were very different than law firms and big national, international corporations. And so over about a 2-year period, we just started to kind of reverse engineer everything in terms of what real estate service providers were giving to the nonprofit community in terms of insight, a process, and negotiations. We reverse engineered everything, and we came up with a number of insights, one of which was just how you measure success and how you take a team through the process. It's very different in that world. And so we started doing this again in 96 with a lot of consulting and planning, a lot of board work. That led to a lot of very unique insights, which we still use today. And that really set us apart.
Okay, so here's what, for our listeners, a lot of takeaways here. So let's just look at the trajectory of Eric's career. So from the blacktop company to the window washing company, he saw a need, he saw a niche, he took advantage of that niche. The free restaurant equipment leasing opportunity he had before the tax law changes, he saw a need, he saw an opportunity, financing was tough, leasing was better, he built the niche. Now he goes and builds a real estate firm specifically focused on, after years, the nonprofit side, again, different than community nonprofit, their associations within Washington, D.C. market. So how you translate this to your business, whether you're a real estate broker, insurance, whatever you're doing from an entrepreneurial standpoint, if you're a web designer, it doesn't matter. Think about the opportunities in the market, the niches that are available, and how you leverage these niches. And as Eric just suggested, one key question, and I remember when I worked for my last employer, my last salary I had, it was 12, 13 years ago. The owner would say, Rod, what does success look like? And so Eric asked himself that question, what does success look like? And then he reverse engineered it to figure out a solution to achieve that success. That's applicable, that approach, to everybody, to really reverse engineer from that side. So Eric, you've crafted now this company. It's specializing in servicing nonprofit organizations, mostly on the representation of lease negotiations from the old high school days. Or what exactly services are you providing?
Yeah, think about the DC market. It's a unique market. All markets are unique. But in this market, most of the tenants, the vast majority, lease office space. And cost of real estate is so high, or the opportunities to buy real estate in well-located place, which would be served by public transportation, subway, and highway. Those buildings are very few and far between that would come to market that a tenant would be able to buy. So 98% of our business is leasing. but 100% of our business is representing the tenant on those projects. We don't represent owners, and that has been a very sharp focus of ours. We didn't start out that way, but since 2005, we've been completely tenant only, and that's been very important for us.
Okay, so that's a differentiator right there. So tenants only, nonprofit mainly. So significant niche. They know what they're going to define market, define value proposition. This applies to everyone listening, right? So there had to be something that happened in your trajectory, Eric, that you said, you know what? I think we're really got something here. So, the Massimo Group, when we first got, we were helping average producers gain more margin, more financial, personal margin, and that worked. And then one day we had one of the world's top producers out of New York asked us for some help, and we wondered, can we do that as well? And yeah, after we tripled his income, we went, cheese and crackers, we got something here. That really fortified what we were doing. Was there an aha moment in your trajectory?
I think the big aha moment for me was I got a call on a Friday afternoon in 2005. And it was an attorney who said that he represents a very large foundation who has a small presence in DC, but a very large footprint outside of DC. They are looking for real estate assistance. And I'm just going to go into this a little bit. The bottom line was they felt like they weren't getting traction with their broker on an expansion. So the lawyer set up a phone interview with me with the controller of this foundation. And the person was telling me what they wanted. And I said to them, look, we got this process. I said, we can negotiate a great lease for you, but I don't know if that's the right solution. I said, we have a process. It'll take 6 weeks. And by taking this 6-week research and consulting process, we will save you 4 months of time on the back end. But this is how we go about doing it. And I said, we just went through it with another large foundation who's a peer of yours, and you should call them. And I set up a call for them. And lo and behold, we got hired. It was the Gates Foundation that hired us. And we've done all their work in this area since 2005. And that's 4 deals later and continuing to deal with it. And the aha for us was, I stick to the guns. We have this process. It's proven. It works. It will help you make better decisions more efficiently. And that was a turning point in the market in the recognition of our firm, because we are small by design. We've never gotten teased into hiring a lot of brokers just to get market share. By beating out the largest firms in the city and the world on that account, which was heavily competed, that was an aha moment for us in the real estate community.
Well, that's an awesome story and so applicable to everyone else. So you got a lead, you got the opportunity to, at least you got the opportunity to share with a prospect what you could do. You leveraged the success of another prospect who agreed that they could talk to. They said, yep, these guys can do what they're saying. So, and then once you got the big kahuna, the Gates Foundation, then you validate yourself to everybody else. Because heck, if the Gates Foundation is going to rely on you to provide them services, they must be good, right? So you went from being and let's think back, and this is going to age ourselves here, Eric, a little bit, right? When we used to buy computers, we all would buy an IBM or maybe a Hewlett Packard because it was a safe choice. It was, I don't know what Acer is, I don't know what Levino is, and that crazy thing called a Mac, no way I'm going to do that. So there's always a safe choice. So Eric, you actually went from being a boutique firm, I can go to nationals, it's a safer choice from a CFO controller standpoint, it is, to being, oh my goodness, you are now the validated choice in the market. Is that accurate?
We are one of the safe choice. And that was a big thing with me, Rod, because I had always heard that nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. And it drove me nuts because I see my competitors in DC, there's great brokers in DC. But in what we do, we are the best. And there's a qualitative difference. And it's not just the lease terms at the end of the day. It's everything that leads up to it. It was very important to me and my partners that we get to the point where we are viewed in our specialty, in our niche, as a safe choice. Everything we did as a company was designed that way. Our logo, our office space, the way we present our materials. We always want it to be just a step nicer than everybody else's. There's a psychodynamic of the buy that we want to make sure that we're hitting, that people feel really good about us, that we're a special firm. We wanted it to be when our clients are at a cocktail party and somebody's talking about real estate, they say, oh yeah, we have a broker and they're doing work. When our clients talk, we're like, oh yeah, I hired Westland and Schlager, or I'm working with Eric West. And everything we've done by design, and this is really important for us, is that connection, that they feel unbelievably great about their relationship with us.
Eric, wow, that is incredible. And yeah, the ability to leverage that relationship, enrich that relationship is key for any business. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a really short break. When we come back, we're going to do the 5 for 5, Eric. And what we're going to do is we're going to have you 5 questions in 5 minutes and address the 5 factors of any business. And we'll get to that when we come right back. Don't go anywhere. Eric's going to share these 5 factors of success. When we get back with the Massimo Show, we'll be right back.
Hey, this is Rod Santomassimo, and we always tell our coaching clients that knowing isn't doing. That's right. Don't kid yourself. In fact, in my new book, Don't Kid Yourself, Knowing Isn't Doing, Build the Business and Life You Desire, I lay out many of our Massimo methods that we share with our clients to help them transform their lives. My new book, Knowing Isn't Doing, is going through a soft launch that will happen in March of 2020, and then a big national launch in September 2020. For more information, check out knowingisn'tdoing.com.
Hey everyone, it's Rod Santomassimo for our final session with Mr. Eric West, top producer, top leader within the Washington, D.C. marketplace. He figured out through his entrepreneurial career how to go out, forge a difference, leverage the difference, and provide exceptional service to his clients. So here we go. We call this section 5 factors in 5 minutes, 5 things you all need to know of how Eric does what he does. Factor number 1, here we go, prospecting. Eric, do you prospect? How do you prospect? Do you make prospecting calls? Do you have targets? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I do a lot of prospecting. It's almost constant. And that's a big part of anybody's business. I make a lot of warm calls. What I have found, though, for myself is I'm much more effective one-on-one. So when I'm prospecting, I take people out to lunch and coffee every week. I'm doing that multiple times. I'm involved in a lot of event marketing. We created the Nonprofit CFO of the Year Award in Washington, D.C. It's one of the most highly recognized events of the nonprofit year. We did that 11 years ago. We are involved in sponsorships, but I take a lead role in those sponsorships. So when I'm calling somebody, they've met me or their friends or colleagues have used me, and I can usually get some sort of meeting, and then it's about converting those meetings. But I am constantly prospecting.
Okay.
That's a big part of our day.
Absolutely. Presence, marketing. How do you market the firm?
A lot of event marketing. You know, the typical social media, that's fine. But it's really about getting out in the community that we serve and being active. All of us here, we have 13 brokers. Everybody's involved. We come out as a SWAT team or individuals. It's constant and ever present.
Okay, so do you use social media or not?
Yes, we're slow to adopt it. And then a year ago, we really picked that up. We hired somebody for social media marketing, and we have seen a big increase in just presence because of it.
Okay, you alluded to earlier, third factor, we call them partners. This really is people on your team. How big is your team? And give us a little bit about their roles and responsibilities.
Well, okay, so I have Rich Lane is my partner running the business. We have 2 junior partners helping us run the business who are producers. And then we have 8 or 9 other brokers, junior and mid-level agents. The junior agents are on the phone constantly. The mid-levels are on the phone and doing others. We also have a full back staff. Now remember, we do a lot of research and consulting. We have financial analysts, we have lease auditors, we have construction managers, we have marketing people, and we have overall assistance. More than just taking data from CoStar and other firms and coming up with that. We just hired a really bright person who starts to think of new things. So the research that we're getting is so incredibly interesting and deep for our clients and our target market. So everybody has a role. Everybody is working as a team. We don't have individual teams within the firm. We all work together as one team.
Platform, what software tools that you rely on to run your business?
So with regard to software and tools, I'm probably not the right person. I know what I use. I use CoStar and Excel and ProCalc and all of the basic stuff. But my teammates behind me really have all of the other software and tools.
Do you use a CRM?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We use a modified ACT. We don't use Salesforce. We've used this modified ACT system for a long time, and it just works for us.
That's perfect. We got 30 seconds. Take us through your day. Productivity. What time you get up? How much sleep you get? What's your day look like?
I wake up at 5:45 every day, and I work out from 6:30 to 8 every day, and I come to work because I get that done. Depending on the day, in the morning, I'm either at meetings or doing research and prospecting. Then lunch, I'm either out with a prospect or a client, or I'm just working through lunch with the people here at the office. Then in the afternoon, it's either meetings or follow-up work. And then about 4 o'clock, I'm starting to do more of my long-term research and writing. I do a lot of writing and thought work, and it's impossible to do it in the meat of the day. So that's at the end of the day.
What time do you go to bed?
Any time between 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, Eric, that's it. 5 factors in 5 minutes. What he does to be successful. As you can tell, there's a lot more we can unpack there with the deep thought, the writing, everything that's going on. But he seems to be a very structured individual, and what he does works, and only works exceptionally well. So, Eric, before we let you go, if you were to share, let's say, your top 3 items of success, and that's anything you could think of, what would you attribute your success to? Top 3 things, what do you believe they would be?
I was thinking about this actually on my way to work today because I was looking at my calendar and saw we were having this. For me, I think the number one thing is I have built and maintained incredible relationships with people since I was even in elementary school, and I'm still friends with those people today. And those relationships have opened every door that I have made over time. My clients have become my friends. My clients have become my sales force. Relationships have mattered more to me than anything else. The second thing I think is learning. One of the things you asked about the day and the week, I'm always learning. I'm always interested in finding out new information, better ways to do things, and not just in real estate or business, in the world itself. And that's made me bring in better insights to whatever we're doing. And then the third thing, which is sort of connected to that, is thinking. I spend a lot of time just sitting back, closing my door and closing my eyes and thinking about a job, a prospect, a deal, a negotiation. And when I sit back and think, like literally allow myself to think for 15 minutes or half an hour on something, and I start writing it out, I'll come up with incredibly new ideas that I'd never thought about. And then you put it into action, it's unbelievable. And so I think that's sort of that 3-legged stool. You've got the people, that's the relationship. You got your learning, that's growth. And then you have thought, that's just your insight, your inner growth.
Well, Eric, I gotta tell you, that is absolutely incredible. There's a gentleman who gets off that transaction treadmill, picks his head up, and thinks about what's going on. And from that, he's able to identify solutions, better ways of doing things, and growing his business. And as Bob Berg, the author of The Go-Giver, which has sold over 1 million copies, shared with me one day during one of our podcasts, said, Rod, pros, the true pros, never stop learning. So Eric, you are a true pro. Eric, thank you so much for your valuable time and your insight and your willingness to share, because you live a life of abundance, the kind of folks we love to work with. Eric, thank you so much for being a guest on the Massimo Show.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, everyone. Until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show. There's so much valuable content that Eric shared with you. But as I always say, knowing isn't doing. Go out and do it. Take care. I want to thank you for listening to this version of the Massimo Show. And please, please go out and share this with your friends, your colleagues. Heck, share it with your dog. Just share it. And more importantly, just give me some feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We all grow from understanding what our audience wants to hear. So until next time, this is Rod Santomassimo with the Massimo Show.
Hi, this is Rod Santomassimo, president and founder of the Massimo Group. And did you know that for over the past 11 plus years, we've worked with thousands of independent contractors, solopreneurs, and small business owners just like you in repositioning their and/or their team's efforts so they can build the personal, professional practice they've always dreamed of. We provide coaching programs for all levels of experience, earnings, and yes, success. So if you're finally ready to get off that transaction treadmill and tracing deals that are growing nowhere and start building the personal, professional business and life consisting of greater wealth and more time, well, check us out at massimo.coach. That's MASSIMO.coach.